Ooh, good.
Okay, and this is Stephen Montegiba. He's class of 39. Welcome.
All right. So, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Awesome. They said it was going to be packed. They were flying. Welcome everybody. My name is Stephen Montegiba. I am originally from Sabines and grew up here, and live in New Braunfels near Canyon Lake right now. So, and I heard about this through a friend that I met at church. Hi, Miss Carol.
Go Carol. Hey Carol.
She told me about this about 5 p.m. on a Monday, and I was up here at 9 a.m. the next Tuesday.
Hey, let's be honest, you were here about 2 minutes before the class.
Now, class has been really great so far. Day one is a lot of orientation. We met Travis Frank, our county extension agent. Honestly, I just showed up, so I don't research tonight. But anyways, he's really awesome guy. He brought a lot of energy, very, I guess he's been doing like 30-something years, and so really could feel the energy and could tell that he had a good team and has kind of whipped them into shape, and everybody was clicking, and you can see it. People are humming and bumming around here getting business done, and then Miss Sarah Puck, we got to meet her, and she's our president, and very fun lady. Haven't had a lot of chance to get to know her, but look forward to it. And after that, we have Miss Denise Leverage, who's in charge of our volunteer hours, and so most of y'all probably already know all about that. That's actually something that I need to get with Miss Denise and April on to help me get in there and get that going. And then Miss Maria Deitch right here, and she's our volunteer projects coordinator. So she gets us all going where we need to go, and look forward to talking to you some more. I've got some ideas on future volunteer projects. So Mr. Bill Nodine was up next, our advanced training opportunities. So really opened everybody's eyes that this isn't just a Master Gardener's Club. You know, this is really comes with a lot of opportunities once you achieve that certification. So very eye-opening there, and look forward to maybe applying to
top one is, doesn't it?
that turf when it falls. We're ready to go to get on that list. So, anyways, and then then we got into it on YouTube. Dennis Hill was our speaker, and he really what I liked about it is it kind of jumps to what was kind of the end of the book at the end of the class, like what we're trying to achieve is this grand master design or plan or concept, and it really starts with the fundamentals and the basics and the soil and the rock and the plants, and so really just kind of prep everybody for what was to come, and then follow that up with Bill Swatner, our soil characteristics and soil improvement expert.
Close out the other mics.
Bill had a lot to say about soil. There's a lot of soil passed around this class. I guess probably the main thing to take away from all that is that you can not change your soil's texture. So don't try it unless it's in a container. Lawn care, which is definitely a hot topic where I'm at. There's a lot of people putting in very expensive yards, and so I'm very interested in that topic. I think there's a lot more going on there. And then we were talking about Marvin Cole, container garden safety practices. So once again, that was pretty exciting because I think honestly, a lot of people are going to probably start going to more and more containers, smaller spaces, but just getting more creative in how they do that, and then knowing why their plants are doing well or why they're not doing well will also help promote that container gardening sector of the business. And then Dr. McKevin and today we talked about plant growth and development, and just really expanded our horizons on how many different plants and kingdoms and a lot of this stuff really just blows your mind. And then plant diseases, Ms. Kim Cochran from TMU. The best thing I like about the plant disease is I'm always sitting there trying to keep something alive, and then one or two simple tests. Once you know it's gone, or just get rid of that plant because it's plants are trying to resuscitate this probably just wasting my time. So, anyways, that's been the first 4 weeks of class. Like I said, my name's Stephen. Anybody has any questions?
Are you enjoying class? Thank you, Stephen. This is what it's all about. Like, he's so excited. Yeah. And I can still feel that. Do you remember how that felt? Excitement. Yeah, so next we're going to have Maria Dyke. She's on the 2024 board. She is the director of the volunteers, and she's going to introduce her guests and do a short spotlight of their garden. Yes. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to go over my slide first, and then I'm going to do the spotlight. Easy. My name is Maria Dyke. I am your volunteer director. So you've seen several emails sent out on the most updated volunteer garden list. I did make copies, so if you're more of a people, hands-on person and want a copy, I have them over here at this table, okay? A couple of updates on that is, so there's 2 gardens that got removed. Schlager Park and the Outdoor Learning Center rain garden were both removed for 2 reasons. Schlager Park requested to be removed because there's changes to the city of Cibolo and they're no longer funding that park. So if you don't have any money, one person can't do it all, it's really hard. So for their mulch and even water supply wasn't going to be funded anymore. So that's unfortunate, so we had to remove that from the list. And also the Outdoor Learning Center rain garden, somehow got added back on the list, but they never put in an application last fall for it. Actually, for the past 2 years, they never submitted an application, so it's something that I caught, so it's been removed. And then I do want to remind everybody that this list gets updated periodically because there's changes all the time. There's city changes all the time. The reason why the Outdoor Learning Center rain garden was also removed was because, from my understanding, the EISD is going to pick it up. So until that happens, that they might be put back on the list again. Okay. The board of directors has no control on these parks when they get removed. It's out of our control a lot of times. If they are wishing to get removed, then we vote on it, and that's what happens. So a garden cannot be put on the list either unless they put an application in it, and usually that happens in October. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. I am constantly going around and visiting all the gardens, which is great because I'm making connections. So far I visited Eustace Park, the Church Demo Garden. I'm almost there. I like the Dale and Anna are my buddies. And then I went to go visit the Poly Mansion Garden. It was just incredible. Like, I'm just like in awe with that garden. I also wanted to bring up that the board decided that we want to meet with all the project coordinators and see like how we can support you further. So on February the 29th, and look for emails, project coordinators for that. At 6 p.m. we are going to have a meeting. It's going to be in person or Zoom. So you don't have to, it's going to be here. So you don't have to come, you can do it on Zoom. So you can download that on your app, or you can download it on your computer, so it's really easy. So we want to hear from the project coordinators and see how we can better support you. And that's the basis of the meeting. So be on the lookout for that email. So I do want to spotlight the Poly Mansion Heritage Garden. Here's a couple of facts about the Poly Mansion that's located in Lavernia, right? Lavernia. Did you know that it was owned by a New Yorker? Can you believe that? Oh my God. It's been around since 1848. So that's like 1848, that's a long time ago, right? At one time that homestead had 150,000 head of cattle roaming around that property. So that's pretty incredible, if you ask me. The home was originally called White Paw, and it's basically where the first settlers from Wilson County settled. So, and with that note, I want to introduce Robin. Michelle, to come up here, and she's going to talk more about the Poly Mansion Heritage Garden. And I'm going to pull up some pictures.
Again, good pictures. There was one good picture.
While she's pulling up the picture, I'm Robin, this is Keith, and we're the owners of Poly Mansion. But the garden, which we call the Heritage Garden, that was my project when I became a student through MasterCard and put it into the project. But this garden was sponsored before we were even students in MasterCard's program.
So if you remember Iris Still from Lavernia, Iris. So Iris set this up as a project right as we were coming into the, when we were students in 2019.
Yeah, well, I had to put up with you.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to say you were the best class coordinator. But anyway, so Iris set it up because, Wilson County does not have master gardeners. And so there's a few of us from Wilson County. And the only real place we had was the elementary school, Lavernia Elementary School. It's a great project too, and I think it's still active, right?
Yes.
It is. But the only thing about that, it's a little bit harder to get into the elementary school. You got to go through the office, you got to get a badge, background check. They frisk you. So I think Iris decided that, hey, let's do another project. You got this great old mansion, and it's an antebellum plantation home. And we had just bought it and got into the club. She said, let's set that up too to make it easier for people to get their hours. And I think we've had three people so far, or from the class come in already in the last week.
So Monday is a work day if you're interested at 10 a.m. So feel free to come out there. It does not look like this.
Every Monday?
No,
Just this Monday?
Yeah. I will let you know for who or when.
Yeah, so until, like, a lot of these gardens, it's best if you email the POCs, the points of contact, to ensure that they're gonna be out there. Things change all the time, people get sick, people have appointments. So it's best if you just email them. For this one, it's by appointment only, so Robin will always coordinate with me. And I've been doing a better job of sending an email out like a week before on the volunteer times and dates. So we're trying to be better at that. So you guys will hear it from us because we hear it from the points of contact. So does anybody have any questions? And again, I have hard copies of the list up here. If anybody wants a hard copy of it, just come to the table later.
Can we take care of some business before we move on? We need a motion to approve the January 2024 meeting minutes. And they are on VMS. They've been there for about 3 weeks. And we just need to get those approved and in the record. Bella, you got those? Okay. Can we get a motion to approve? I make a motion. Can we get a second?
Second motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, Paul Carter has 90 seconds. Yep.
That's impossible.
Now, he's got a challenge this year. We're going to help him on his propagation policy.
My name's Paul Carter, I'm a training classroom coordinator. I wanted to kind of update the last meeting. I talked about donations and plans for our vacation class. I told everybody that I would get a list of what we're looking for, and I'll pass some of those things out to you, some flyers. If you didn't get one of these flyers, let me know, and I'll catch you at the door on the way out, okay? Just to get you updated. Now, the plans, if you have any, if it's not on the list, you can still donate. But if you have plans, think about a week ahead of time. Our class is on the 26th of March. Think about ahead of time, we'll get it to us. How much time do we have?
63 seconds. 62 seconds. You're halfway there. You're good. That's good. Whatever you do.
What kind of plans do you?
I told you this.
Anything that can propagate the
Or division?
The second thing I wanted to cover real quick, we've been wanting to get our training scheduled for BMS, and that's already been done. So if there's anybody here that wants to attend one of our classes, please notify us ahead of time so that we can make sure that you have a handout, okay, for the class, okay? But it's on BMS now. April, where's April? Can you explain to them how to get to it for BMS, please?
Okay, it's real easy. Just go to, what is it, general information and docs, and in the drop-down menu on the left, look for other. And when you click on other, they'll pop up and look for the class 39 schedule.
Okay. And it's open to,
Or call one of us.
it's open to your bid, okay? These are, want to attend one of our classes. So feel free to call us and what you into, okay? Any questions on any of this? The plans and the classes. Okay.
Good job.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, next is the president's report. Not gonna still sign it.
Other way.
Okay. I did not get hired for my technical skills. Okay, so this is from Sarah. She's sick. She's trying to feel better and she's not doing good. But we're here to back her up. Okay. So, the membership meeting schedule change. We're going to try to start at 6 with our, we want to let people know about all these gardens and hidden secret, wonderful opportunities that we're doing and supporting as master gardeners. So we're going to try to have someone here every meeting to represent a garden. And we have our February board meetings are now posted to BMS if you want to look at those. We don't have to approve those. We did that as a board, right? Approving the board meeting. Yeah, okay. Then I want to give you a reminder about the Texas Master Garden Virtual Conference that's going on. Check your emails for information if you want to check into that, or your class coordinators or anyone to speak to them there. Per the ruling of the state of Texas, the TikTok account has been deleted. And that's like my husband's military, like it's just a thing. Like a lot of state funded, federal funded, they just don't use that as so, that wasn't a decision made by us, that was from the state of Texas. So our board meetings are the second Thursday of each month, and from 6 till finish. And if you want, our board meetings are open. If you want to attend, please come watch what we do. If you would like to speak or bring something before the board, please make sure that the board has you on the agenda. If you come and you have something you want to discuss, we already have our agenda set. So we need to fit you in, and respectfully, we want to get you on the actual agenda. Okay, so we still need a communication director. And this person, we just made this position, right, last year?
We took publicity director, yeah.
Yeah, so we matched this director position, and we're looking for somebody who wants to do public relations. They'll be working with the art, with running all of our social media, not actually doing it, that part, but coordinating the bits and pieces of it and bringing it together under one point of contact. And then they will just basically, for lack of a better word, monitor it. It's just something that you would have to be committed to. We really would love anybody who wants to step up and help us do that. Okay, and now we're going to have Starfish Awards.
So this is the fun part of the meeting where anybody gets to nominate anybody for Starfish. As a reminder, Starfish is just to somebody who's made a difference. To you individually, to our organization, to the community. So at this point, would anybody like to come up and nominate?
Yes, ma'am.
Our
Can
Starfish.
you go to the next slide, please?
Wow, look at that
Our Starfish
Is it turnip?
since 2015. I
Need
had
to
the
be red on
pleasure
the bottom, 2 colors.
since 2015. He's our go-to guy in the Big Red Barn. You give him a problem, he will solve it, and he will save you money while he solves it. We appreciate Rodney Barton, and he is an excellent gardener as well as a great plumber.
So in essence, we had a big lamp on the water line out of the Big Red Barn. And the Big Red Barn is what we use for irrigation. And it goes back to the village, I believe, and a couple of other areas. So this is the picture that we have to share of his presence and some of his passion of his veggies. I apologize because I did not get a picture of him when he's on his damn hands and knees with his hands 2 feet in the ground fixing this pot, okay? And it took a lot of effort, so we just wanted to recognize Rodney, if you would come up, Rodney.
Plumbers have helpers that do all the grunt work. I specialize in doing the grunt.
Take a picture real quick.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to come up and present the Starfish? I know you guys are doing good things out there. You just want to recognize.
So next, I know everyone knows this dynamo right here. Is our Vice President-elect, Board Member 2024.
President-elect.
President-elect, sorry. President-elect. It's you, it's you. And if you need an answer, she's got the answer, and she gets a lot of her time to us, and we appreciate you. And she's gonna be wearing a lot of hats
I always
tonight.
say go ask Wendy.
No.
Hi, guys. Now we're gonna talk about how we're gonna make some money.
Yeah.
We got plant sales scheduled, ready to go. If you wanna jot them down, you have them on the slides.
Do you have slides?
Yeah, the 16th, starting at the Silver Center, we're gonna start back at the Big Red Barn. I guess last year it was skipped at the tractor pull. So we're going back to the tractor pull this year. And then the Silver Center on the 30th. So we've got 3 plant sales in the month of March. If I have been in contact with Peterson's just about every day, if not every other day, about getting rodeo tomatoes. And she keeps saying, give me a couple more days. I'll give her a few more days. And I'll call and she'll say, just a few more days. So they're honestly looking at the new rodeo to come out the first week of March. And they hope to have it in the stall ready for the facility to come around the 2nd to the 9th. So I think if you're anticipating those for your garden, those would be the times that we will get them to you. As far as what Bill is doing, Bill is doing some amazing things with some plant libraries that he's working with. I know here in the Seguin Library, they're very anxious to get the seed library up. He was talking about how last week he went up to
Go back, go back.
Well, I don't know how to go back now. Just there you go.
Okay.
There. You're trying to find Bill's stuff? Just
Yeah.
keep going. Go one more. No, other way.
Yeah.
There you go, right there.
Oh, no, keep going.
Stop there for a minute.
all right.
Stop me.
I can just keep going.
You did fine.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, there you go. But he's working with these seed libraries in different areas in the Seguin area. I know he's working with the Wilson County Library right now, looking about putting the seed library there too. So it's really exciting. He was talking to people at the Seguin Library, and there was a group of people who were checking out books, and they were overhearing him talking to the individual who was helping him coordinate this. And he said before he knew it, everybody had left the line for checking out books, standing around him, wondering what was going on. And as soon as they caught on to it, it was like, when can we get received? So I think this is going to be a really great thing that we can do for the community. And the library has actually gone to the extent of doing color leaflets to put in so that they understand how to plant them, how to take care of them, how to harvest them, how to collect seeds. So the library is even going to be providing us some lunches for people who come to our new lunch and learns that we're going to be sponsoring at the library as well. So that's pretty cool. I suggested one on the 13th of March, but I understand the one coming on the 10th of April is a little push. So, be careful. So, that's about all we've got for him, I believe.
One more.
One more?
One more slide.
Okay, Peter Hernandez down at the Lunch and Learn on composting. He's a lot of fun when he's got the workers.
Yeah. It's the guy. Here, one more slide.
The tree and tree care, that's the next upcoming next training, and then that virtual master gardener class conference. So that looks pretty interesting.
There's a lot of updates on the BMS homepage for continuing education. Lots of stuff.
Actually, it'll be the 11th through the 13th, right, instead of the 11th through the 13th.
Those were the days where we got time to work.
I do have one question about plant sales. Are we going to be doing an Earth Day event in April?
What
I didn't see the date on there.
For which one?
Earth Day.
Yeah. Right, downtown, we had that in our list.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do on the 27th.
27th.
Else, but I said it's usually more rentals.
Yes, yes. It's on the square, right?
We got the trade days, we got it scheduled.
Yes.
I just
Now, last year, I think towards the end of the year, we got into some craft kind of activities. We were painting pots and doing those kinds of things that we could use to embellish the plants that we were selling. And it was popular enough and we made enough money on the little amount that was actually spent that we're going to try it again this year. And we're going to start having crafting parties
Here?
here, upstairs.
Okay.
We'll hopefully have materials for you. We will get together as a group, the people who want to participate in this, and we'll talk about dates and times and stuff like that. So that as many people can come, and we may fluctuate from week to week, so that we can have as many people participate as possible. But we have a lot of fun in these crafting parties, and we come up with a lot of things that, I don't know.
And they're very profitable.
Yeah, they were very profitable last year, in a short amount of time that we did it. So I think that's something else that we can add to the plant sales as well. So, we've got a lot of opportunity to make some money. I've got a couple people who are working on getting some really good pricing on some wholesale plants. We've got the grow team working on, I know, Ben's garden future. Garden is being worked on, and I know the Shirts demonstration garden has got a team working on growing vegetables for them as well. So we got a lot of stuff going on. April, we're going to hit the ground running. I need to talk to you about something pretty serious. I'm in a pickle. Is the jar about that tall? I have had an injury that has been sustained for several years now, but unfortunately it's progressively gotten worse, and it's been determined by the doctors that I have to do some surgery. The surgery is pretty nasty. I won't go into any details because you don't need to know that. We just had food anyway. So, I am at this point in the cycle of what they call doctor hell. I go to this doctor and they say, well, you need, for clearance, you need to go to this doctor. And then that doctor says, okay, we're finished. You see that, you need to go to this doctor. And it's usually about a 10, 14-day interval between each one. So the process of me getting the surgery accomplished seems to be going into infinitum. They promised me it would be done soon, but that was in December. And we're looking at March. The plant team, I feel we can develop into something that is going to be very self-sustaining, and that I can hopefully do what I need to help the people on the team from the couch. Hopefully we'll be there at some of the sales, probably for nothing more than moral support, maybe bring you something to drink. I don't do alcohol before noon, so it's got to be between the 12 and 2. And hopefully keep everything on track. But I'm going to need some people who are going to be pretty committed to volunteering and help with things like getting the awnings up, getting tables set up, getting plants set up, getting name tags on the plants, getting the banners put up. Basically your setup and take down kind of activities that you do when you participate in any kind of craft fair. So I'm going to be sending out a letter calling for volunteers. The bigger the team, the less you have to have responsibility for. I would hate for somebody to get stuck with actually having to run the cash register every single plant sale until I can get this resolved. And then I'll just come to your house and drag you to the sale and go run the cash register. So have some patience, if you would please. Have some patience with me, and please have patience with the people who are working on getting these plant sales working. Okay? Thank you guys. Sign-up sheet for volunteers out there. If you could put your name and your email address, it'd be great. Thanks, guys.
No, I'm good. So Sarah just found out today that she's not coming, and she sent me a message. And Ernestine has something she wants to share with us real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a slide, Ernestine? I've already given it up. Okay. So Ernestine is in charge of our seed savers program and amongst many other things, but she wants to get with y'all and give you some information.
This is no big deal. You see seeds back there on the wall? Take them home with you. We were given seeds, extra seeds this year that were not allocated to the PO seeds. These seeds are not seeds that will be used
to save for next year. In other words, you plant your seeds for the seed exchange. We keep seeds from year to year. These are not seeds that you will keep for next year. These are not heritage seeds. They're good seeds, but a lot of them, when you keep the seeds, you don't know what you'll get next year, okay? Because they are probably hybrid seeds, which hybrid seeds are okay. A lot of them are bred so they won't get diseases. They may be even better than some of the heritage seeds in that respect. So they're good seeds, you can plant them, and if you need some for your gardens, please, please take them. They have been kept under control, climate control, and they're excellent seeds. Nobody needs them right now, but you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just take them home. We'll be getting more when the retailers give us some more this year, and they're free for you. Okay?
I want to write down what it is.
Trying to get it off.
Okay, Maria, it's gonna come up just one more opportunity, volunteer opportunity. Do you wanna do that?
Actually two, yeah. Actually, yeah.
And then we'll.
Just really quick, to add to my slide, I got an email from the Little Red Barn. Big Red Barn. Barn is a restaurant, right? I know you're not hungry, it was so hungry. Anyway, so the Big Red Barn, they said that if there's gonna be rain on Friday, that, there won't be a volunteer opportunity that day. That they won't meet. So Tam, I know you go there on Fridays usually.
Can I clarify that?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
If it rains a lot, if it's just misting in the morning, we're working.
Okay. So,
We have potatoes
Are you
to
in?
plant.
We have
and what time? What time do you have? 8 o'clock. Okay, 8 o'clock. And another volunteer opportunity is, Sarah wanted me to brief about this. That we are looking for, a technology team. We're trying to put a technology team together for them to record the meetings and, classes and any training that we have. So if you are, savvy in technology, you know how to work, the equipment. The POC point of contact is not Denise, it's actually, Prince, Paul Prince. So he's back here, wait, Paul. So get with him after the meeting, and then, that would be a good opportunity for you to learn some stuff too, something new. So, did you want to say anything, Paul?
No, but we need at least, I'd like to get 2 more people. That
Two more
way
people?
everybody's can juggle how they have to go and not be here all the time. But,
Okay. All right, and that's it. And then,
Okay, Claire. So next we're gonna have the treasurer's report with Claire. She's been working hard on getting this all in order. She's like was immediately getting everything switched and it's going very well. Like she's on it. Okay.
There it is, there it is. Okay, so, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Quicken. I'm using Quicken. I use that for my stuff all the time, so this is what I'm using now. I'm using the reports. Some of them are good for us, and some of them I will have to tweak. Here is our bank balance for January. And here is the total income for January, and then the right column will be year-to-date. So 1 month, one month of the year. And here are our expenses for January. And we voted at the board to fund the scholarship fund for the year, this $2,500. We did that in January, so our output for the month of January were negative $1,925 because of that transfer. We still have the money, it's just in the other fund. That here, $7,514, it was $5,000, so that's that. Any questions?
have your membership card? There's some on the table up in Don't rip them up. Yes, they are. They were when I got them.
That is what to do. Okay, well, let me do my report first.
They bought this.
Am I going the wrong way?
I don't know where she was.
I don't know.
You're on 8 p.m.
Okay.
Go backwards, over there.
You got 90 seconds.
Back, keep going.
The other way. And if they're under there.
Okay, the vice president's report is, basically I'm just giving our speakers. Tonight we have Andy Blair, he's going to be giving us a lecture on gardening and having your yard and everything under drought conditions. Next month we have publisher of Texas Garden Magazine, Jay White, that's going to be good. And then it carries on to the end of the year. In June, we do not have a speaker because we do our social, we graduate our new class, and then in December we have social, so we're down to only one opening. We have a lot of Quality County Master Gardening experts, I don't know the right name, specialized, advanced training.
Certified.
What is it called?
I don't know, certified. Advanced
Yeah,
certified.
so the ones who've got taken specialized training are going to come in and do some classes for us. So right now, that's my report. We're going to take a 10-minute break and then we'll have our speaker here.
Kathleen, did you want to say something? Kathleen, wait, Kathleen has something to say.
I'm Andy Blair. Thanks for the introduction. I'm glad to be back to talk to this group again. You guys were one of my favorite groups that I've talked to so far in terms of like how interactive you were and what great questions you had. So I'm looking forward to more of that tonight. I'm a plant guy. I guess you could say I've been studying plants, paying attention to plants for over 20 years, professionally and personally. And what I realized is up until just a couple of 2 or 3 years ago, I never really knew how plants work. I managed to go all the way through, get a bachelor's degree, master's degree, studying plants for years, and nobody ever really taught me how plants work and how soil works. And so I'm going to spend, we're going to talk about drought today, and drought resiliency and climate resiliency, because that's a really tremendous topic right now. But one of the things we really need to understand how to battle against this, is we need to understand how plants work and how soil works. So I'm going to be a plant guy. I'm going to mostly talk to you about soils today, and a little bit of plants at the end. So we have all just survived a couple of pretty horrendous years of drought here in central Texas. I live in Omaha County in New Braunfels. We've been in stage 3 water restrictions for going on 2 straight years now. You guys here in Guadalupe County have suffered as well. To give a little context on drought, I like to think about 2 different types of drought. So you have a shorter onset drought, which is what I would call like a soil drought. And this can happen over a real short period of time. So you might have a lot of rain in the spring, but if you have 100-degree days for 30, 40, 50 days in a row, it doesn't matter how much it rains in the spring, that soil is going to dry out. So you see your soil layer here, you've got kind of your unsaturated zone at the top, where most of the plant roots are, and then you've got a water table below that. So in a short onset drought, that soil dries out and it's really stressful on the plants. Longer term drought, I would call that like a water table drought or aquifer drought. This is something that doesn't happen over 50, 60 day period. It's something that can happen over a number of years. The last 2 years in Central Texas have been pretty brutal. We had a similar 2 or 3 year period back in 2011, 2012, where we had multiple really dry years in a row, and that really draws down our aquifers, it draws down our water tables. In addition to all the people moving here and sucking more of it up out of the ground. And so we have these longer term trends where we're losing those longer term stores of water. But I kind of try to keep that separate in my mind from that short term soil drought. The other thing to remember is that drought is a natural cycle. Droughts happen, droughts happened before we were here, they're going to continue to happen on natural cycles. If you go back and look at the last 14 or so thousand years here in Central Texas, that period is called the Holocene. That's kind of the period where we've had our modern climate here in Central Texas that we have now, since the end of the last ice age. And during that period, we've had several really severe droughts, probably much worse than anything we've seen in any of our lifetimes. Worse than the drought of the 50s. And if you look at all the plants that are here today, those are the plants that have survived the worst of those droughts of the last 14,000 years. And so when you see these plants growing out here on the side of the road, these are the ones that are tough enough that they can survive these drought conditions. But one thing that we are noticing is that as we move from what has been our climate for the last 14,000 years or so into a little bit of a newer climate, what we call the Anthropocene, the period in the Earth's history that's really affected by humans, we're seeing some changes in our climate and our weather, and it's important for us to understand those and understand how we can counteract that. So how have we affected droughts? If you look back at the last couple hundred years, it's pretty definitive that you can look at CO2 levels in the atmosphere that were measured in the 1800s and look at them today, and they've gone up tremendously, and especially in the last 50 to 70 years. Most folks are really familiar with the effects of burning oil and gas and coal and using those for energy and how much CO2 that's contributed to the atmosphere into this whole climate issue. But a lot of folks don't know that soil emissions make up about 20% or so of the CO2 emissions during that same period. And they continue to be an issue today. So if you look at this chart here, the blue on the bottom is CO2 emissions from land use. Most of that is CO2 coming out of the soil. So not really well publicized, but does anyone know how CO2 comes out of the soil?
Tilling, planting, farming.
Okay, so you look at a healthy soil, these grassland soils we had here, they were full of humus and this stored organic matter that was in a very stable form in the soil, buried under the soil. When we've come in and we've plowed those up and filled them and brought them up to the surface, we're exposing all of that organic matter to oxygen. When we go in and we add inorganic fertilizers on them, we're feeding bacteria that eat those carbons and break them down and turn them into simple sugars, and then whenever they eat those, they burp off, they off-gas CO2. And so the more that we till, and we do this year after year, the more we till and add fertilizers, we're taking more and more of that carbon that was bound up in a stable form for decades and decades in the soil, and we're releasing it as CO2. And so you can see this at an ecosystem scale. You can see this all across the blackland prairies, where you go and you look at the soils that used to be dark black chocolate soils, and they're kind of just a pale gray now, and they've lost all of that dark organic matter out of them. It's been converted to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The other thing that's really detrimental about this is when you lose that organic matter, you also lose a lot of the structure in the soil. A lot of those carbon compounds that are in the soil that get converted to CO2, they help build the structure of the soil and create all these little macropores and micropores for water to infiltrate down in. And so when you lose that, the soil just does not catch and hold as much water. It doesn't infiltrate as well. And the other thing you see is you'll get these crusting on the surface of the soil. And so once the soil doesn't infiltrate water, it runs across the surface, it picks up velocity, and it'll carry that soil away, and you get higher erosion rates. So what were the soils like in Central Texas before we came here and affected them? I'm going to talk about in the hill country, the soils out up there tended to be fairly shallow and rocky from the limestone. And a lot of them were on slopes, but they would have had really high organic matter, even if it's a fairly thin soil. All of that cedar duff, the juniper duff, and the leaves from all the oak trees break down and can create these really rich, dark soils, even if they're only, a few inches thick. And those are surprisingly good at grabbing and holding on to water. When we lose those, we lose that 3 inches of soil, it's a night and day difference in how the water flows across that landscape. And then you go in the bottom land side of the hill country, and they have these deep kind of clay loam soils, similar to the blacklands, the more grassland type soils. In the blacklands here, in Seguin and the area between here and New Braunfels, we have these deep clay soils and clay loam soils with grasses and perennial wildflowers that have roots down 6, 8, 12 feet deep. And all those roots are as the roots are dying every year and shedding, they're moving carbon way, way down, not just inches, but feet down into the soil. And so you had these deep, black, rich soils that were several feet thick. And they were some of the deepest, most fertile soils anywhere on the planet. Really amazing. What they were also really good at was they were extremely high in organic matter. And so they were very good at grabbing water and holding onto it. They were basically giant black sponges. And it could rain, you could get a 10-inch rain overnight and you go out there and it's all in the ground. So compared to what you see now, you get half-inch rain and there's ponds of water everywhere, right? So how have our soils changed? They obviously don't really look like that anymore here. But one of the issues we have is something I've heard called generational amnesia. So when you have a problem that kind of gets worse over several generations, each generation kind of only sees what's going on while they're here, and they don't see how good things were 3 generations ago, and they don't understand how bad things are going to be 3 generations from now. So I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine knew a guy in the western part of the hill country who was a rancher, and he said that his granddaddy raised the healthiest, biggest cattle anywhere in the western part of the hill country, and he was proud of that. And his daddy raised the healthiest, biggest sheep in the western part of the hill country, and he was real proud of that. And he went around telling everybody that he raised the healthiest, biggest goats anywhere in the western part of the hill country. So you can see, they all had this idea of how good things were, but what are their kids going to be raised? What are their grandkids going to be raised with? Rocks, right? So, if you go out and you drive around in the springtime and you see these beautiful bluebonnets just blanketing the roadsides, most people drive by and they see that and they're like, this is a healthy ecosystem, right? Well, bluebonnets are a plant that is adapted to live in really, really poor mineral soils with no organic matter, no fungi, they're colonizers. So they come in and basically, they colonize the surface of the moon if there was water there. And so what you see when you see all these bluebonnets and all these wildflowers growing all over the landscape is not necessarily a healthy ecosystem. It's a Band-Aid that's trying to cover the surface that's really degraded. And year after year after year, if you just continue to see nothing but bluebonnets, that's probably telling you that the situation is not getting any better there. So we've lost organic matter in the soil through tilling and fertilization. Overgrazing has been a real issue in parts of the hill country, certainly in the blacklands. You see these cow pastures where they've just completely abused them in some places, and you end up with compacted soils, increased erosion. You end up with more of these kind of noxious weeds that come in, and they're trying to do the same thing with bluebonnets. They're trying to come in and cover the soil and provide some basic cover. But these soils have lost infiltration, they've lost their water holding capacity, and they have really high rates of erosion. So, It's just really depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Man, that's the depressing part of my talk. I like to do that at the beginning, so we can be positive. I'm really naturally an optimist by nature, probably to a fault. So what is healthy soil? What does healthy soil look like? One of the things that we're learning about healthy soil is that it has just a mind-boggling amount of biodiversity in it. If you look at a healthy square meter of soil, it can have tens of trillions of bacteria. It can have tens of billions of protozoans. And as you move up that food chain, you have fewer organisms in each level as you move up the food chain, but there's still, there could be thousands of worms in a garden bed. And so it's just really, really diverse. That's one of the things that characterizes healthy soil. The other thing that's really important is to have a good balance between fungi and bacteria. Most people, when they hear fungi, they think of mushrooms, or they think of molds. They think of them in kind of a negative way. But fungi are incredibly important for soil health and for properly functioning soils. So if you have a soil that has no fungi, or if you do things to your soil that discourage fungi from being able to grow in them, you end up with these bacterial-dominated soils that they don't perform as well as a good healthy soil. A healthy soil, I like to say, is like a city. So it's got to have structure. It's got to have something that creates, corridors and spaces for things to move through. So the earthworms are maybe like buses going through big tunnels or trains, and then you've got all kinds of other smaller things that live back in smaller little holes. And the fungi, through all of their hyphae that crawl and move through the soil, they create a lot of that structure, and they kind of prop everything up. So they're incredibly important. The organic matter is a lot of what feeds those fungi. And so the combination of the organic matter and all those fungi growing through it is really what builds that city. The other thing that fungi do, not only do they provide structure, but they also connect all of the organisms in an ecosystem together. So a lot of fungi will grow and form mycorrhizal associations with plants. And they'll connect plants to other plants. They connect plants to bacteria and other organisms in the soil ecosystem. They convert carbon from basic sugars and things that are eaten up really quickly by bacteria into some of these more stable compounds like humus that can stay in the soil for decades and decades. And they go out and so they'll attach to plant roots, and then they go out into the soil and scavenge and find nutrients and minerals and water and bring that back to the plants. And then the other thing they can even, well, I think I'm going to get into this here in a little bit, but they can even connect plants to each other so that plants can trade nutrients back and forth where one might have more than the other. So one other thing, if you're trying to look at healthy soil, you've got a lot of earthworms. I think of earthworms is kind of like the elephants out on the African savannah. If you got a lot of elephants, that means everything else below them is food chain is probably pretty healthy. So if you've got a lot of earthworms, that's probably a good indicator that everything else below that is doing pretty well in your soil. So how do plants work? So I told you before, I went years and years and years studying plants, and nobody ever explained to me how they work. So I'm going to give you an analogy. Does everybody know what a lichen is? So a lichen is basically, we call it a composite organism. It's part fungi and part algae, or sometimes like cyanobacteria. But those two different organisms that aren't related, they live together and they form one body, and they have different parts, or different functions. So the algae is photosynthetic, and so it'll take sunlight energy and convert it to sugar. The fungi gives that algae a safe place to live, but it'll also go out and use organic acids to break down rocks and use the minerals from the rocks, phosphorus and things that the algae can't produce on its own. And so they work together to do what neither one could do on their own. Well, we think about plants, when I learned about, plants starting at, elementary school all the way up, what you learn is, a plant is an organism, and you put it in some dirt, and you add some nitrogen to it, and you add some phosphorus, whatever minerals it needs that it can't make itself, you add those in, you add some water, and if you want it to grow faster, you just add more of them, right? That's how it works. But actually, plants, they've been here quite a long time, and they were really doing pretty fine before we got here to help them out. So how do they do that? So since plants have come up onto land, which was a really, really long time ago, they've been living and working with fungi. And so almost all plants have some sort of association with fungi, and some will associate with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different types of fungi. And what they do is just like with the lichen, the fungi can go down and scavenge phosphorus from rocks in the soil. They can go, if you look at like this little seedling here, so this is a little pine seedling that's been colonized by mycorrhizal. The actual root of that seedling is really small. You think about like the three-dimensional space that root occupies in the soil and what it has access to in terms of minerals or even water. It's not very much. But that fungi can increase the area in the soil that it can absorb minerals and nutrients and water from by thousands, if not millions of percent. So it really is a huge benefit. What the plants do is they'll actually, of all the sugar that they produce, they don't keep it all for themselves. They'll trade 20 to 25% of it. They'll pump it down into their roots, and they leak it out of their roots into this area called the rhizosphere, which is an area around the roots where the fungi live and where bacteria and nematodes live. And they just feed the soil. And in return, those fungi and all those other organisms go and get things that they can't make themselves and feed them. So it's a really a mutually beneficial relationship. They're even discovering now that some fungi can provide protection for plants against insects and pathogens. They can actually go into the plant and switch on genes that make them more resistant to certain diseases or pest insects. And so it's just, we really are just barely scratching the surface of what we understand about plants and fungi and how they work together. And then, like I said, plants can trade with each other through these fungal networks. So you have a plant like a legume that maybe forms an association and produces extra nitrogen from those root nodules, right? When you have a plant like a grass that maybe isn't as, needs more nitrogen, it doesn't have those root nodules. Well, when they're connected up through that fungal network, they can trade back and forth with each other for nutrients and minerals that they're not as good at getting. So it's really just kind of wild if you think about it. So if you want to improve your soil and to make it more drought resistant and climate resistant, I think the first thing you have to do is you kind of have to assess what you've got. What most people will say is you need to go get you a soil kit and you take a sample of soil and you send it to somebody who's an expert, who's a soil scientist, and they're going to go and they're going to pour a bunch of acids on it, and they're going to squeeze out all the nutrients they can from it, and they're going to send you back results of what they found. Well, that's one thing. That's not really what's in your soil. That's what you can extract from soil with acid. And so what I would say is there's a lot you can do without having to buy a soil kit, just with your own senses. So take you a sharpshooter, go out and dig you a hole, and look at that sample of soil that comes out of the hole. What does it look like? Do you have 2 or 3 inches of dark soil on the top, and the rest is just mineral soil? Do you have 10 inches of dark soil? That's something that you can visually assess. Feel the soil. Does it feel sticky? Is it just completely dry? Or is it nice and crumbly like a nice chocolate cake? The feel of the soil can tell you a lot. I mean, what does it smell like? We really discount how useful our nose is for telling us information about things. If you smell a soil and it smells like rotten eggs, that's a bad sign. That soil is getting anoxic and there's sulfur that's coming out of there. If you smell soil and it has like a sour smell or a chemical kind of smell, that's not good. Healthy soil should have kind of a sweet, earthy smell. Everybody kind of knows what a healthy soil smells like. That's what it should smell like. And it should have a smell. If your soil doesn't have any smell, there's not a lot going on in that soil biologically. It's just mineral soil. You can do an infiltration test. Just get on the internet, Google, do DIY infiltration test. You can take a coffee can, cut the bottom off it, pound it into the ground with a hammer and put marks in there, and you can measure when you start, how much does my soil infiltrate, how quickly does it infiltrate water, and as you go through 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you can compare and see how much improvement you get in an infiltration rate. That's a really valuable thing. And you can even do a simple organic matter test. You can take a sample of soil and you completely dry it out, bone dry, and weigh it. And take it, put it in the oven, and basically cook it until you've cooked off all that CO2, and then reweigh it, and it'll tell you what the percentage of organic matter is. It's kind of a rough estimate, but it's, that's something you can do yourself without having to send it off to a lab. So I'm all about do it yourself. The next step is to try to figure out what are your goals. What is it that you're wanting to do with your soil? Now, it all depends on what you're trying to do with your soil. So if you just have a lawn or a landscape bed, or if you have a garden, you want to assess what am I trying to get from my soil. And I would say if you only have one goal, if you just want to keep it simple, your goal should be to increase soil biodiversity. If you have really high soil biodiversity, all of the rest of this stuff is going to take care of itself. So what you're wanting to do, if you're wanting to make your soils more drought resistant, more climate resistant, you want to increase soil organic matter. Most of our soils are lower in soil organic matter than they could be or than they historically have been, and so that's a real big one. You also want to improve infiltration rate. If we get 6 inches of rain in 2 days, how much of that rain do you want to keep? And how much do you want to give to the Gulf of Mexico? So we want to improve that infiltration rate because then that will hold more water in the soil for plants to use later on in the year when they need it. So that's that water holding capacity. And then you want to reduce soil erosion. You don't want your soil to wash away. One thing you can see here on this diagram is the plant on the left there is growing in a healthier soil. You can see all of those, good healthy soil will form what's called soil aggregates, these kind of macro particles in the soil, and then there's spaces in between them where water can flow through. And those are formed from root channels and from worms and from things crawling through the soil and from fungi. If you have a soil that's really compacted like this one on the right, there's no soil aggregates there, and it won't absorb a lot of water. When you till a soil over and over and over again, it starts to look like that compacted soil. You think by tilling it, you're opening it up, but really you're just destroying all of that structure that the fungi and all those organisms have created. You're basically bombing the city, getting the soil and knocking out all the buildings, and they got to rebuild it. So taking action. There's been kind of a movement, a lot of this stuff is, these ideas have been around for over 100 years, but there's kind of been a more popular movement lately called the soil health movement, and it's kind of started in agriculture, but I would say that it's applicable to anybody who's wanting to improve soil for any reason. You can take these kind of 4 basic principles and apply them. So the first one is minimize soil disturbance, and that's physical disturbance. So tilling, try not to till the soil, try not to destroy the physical structure of it, but also chemical disturbance. All of those sides that we like to put out, the pesticides and herbicides and fungicides, those all have an effect not just on the organisms you're targeting, but also on soil fungi and on bacteria in the soil, and they can throw off that natural balance. Excuse me. The second tenet is to keep the soil covered. And so what this means is you want to always have some sort of mulch or plant litter on the surface of the ground at all times, so that when the rain falls, that rain action is not breaking up the soil and washing it away. You guys probably use mulch on all of your, on your trees and on your beds, but think about like in a grassy setting, like you need to have mulch and stuff on the surface of the soil there, or in a farm field, you need to have plant material and litter on the surface all the time to be that kind of protective armor of the soil. You also want to have living roots in the soil at all times. So I always get a little depressed when I drive out through the Blacklands in the winter and I see all these fields that they've plowed up in the fall and then just left with nothing going on them for the whole winter all the way into the spring. And so what's happening is, if you've got organisms living in that soil, they need food. And the plants would normally feed them. But if there's only plants actively growing with roots in the ground 3-4 months out of the year, the rest of the year that soil is going to starve. And so it's not going to be ready for you when you put plants back in the ground in the spring. It's going to be starved, and there's not going to be much left there. So if you can keep living roots in the soil at all times, have cool season grasses and warm season grasses, or cool season vegetables, warm season vegetables in your gardens, you can kind of keep those sugars flowing into the soil, keeping the soil healthy. And then the last tenet is you want to have plant diversity. And this applies whether you're talking about landscape area or a garden or a farm field. If you can grow multiple types of plants together, different types of plants, they help each other. Like we talked about the legume might fix nitrogen, that it trades to something else. There may be some plant that's really good at scavenging potassium or copper. And so they're trading these things back and forth. So the more diversity you have, the more resilient that community of plants is going to be. You want to have a diversity of root types and root depths. So you think about like grasses tend to have real kind of fibrous root systems. You might have things like onions and irises that have a bulb. And then you have deeper rooted things like some of the perennial sunflowers have a deep taproot. So you think about how all those roots kind of interact with each other and fit into different spaces with each other in the soil. The other thing that I always like to say is never skimp on the grasses. We live in a grassland biome. This area was a grassland, and it was a diverse grassland. So in any kind of planting you have, grasses are really what's adapted to live here. And so you want to make sure that you've got grasses in any kind of planting you do it. How can we take action? So one of the important things is when we get rain, we want to catch it and hold on to it. So most of our cities, our lots that we live on are designed to shed water. We look at water as a waste product. We call it stormwater waste. And so when we get a big rain, everything we have is designed to like push that rain off, send it down to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, we're going to need that rain when the summer gets here. And so how can we change our mindset from living in a watershed that sheds water to a water catchment? So you can think about this in your own home lot that you live on. You can build rain gardens, and there's a lot of really great online information about how to design and build rain gardens. But it's basically just an area that you design that's got a berm at the end that kind of catches and holds water, and then you've got plants that are designed to live in that soil and infiltrate it, and then it's there for you all through the year. You can do, if you've got just a steep slope somewhere, you can terrace it. You can take, I just drew this little figure at the bottom here, but you can take landscape timbers or stone edging, and you can put that out on your slopes and make little dams, backfill behind them with rich soil or compost or mulch and plant into those. And those are little sponges that are catching some of that water. You don't have to catch it all, but catch as much as you can. And then also, I would just say with mulch and compost, you want to get mulch and compost from a diversity of sources. So different types of compost have different mineral components to them. They're going to have different amounts of cellulose versus lignin. which impacts the more diversity you have in the compost and in the mulches you bring in, the more diversity of the soil life and soil contact you're going to have at the end. The other thing is that compost itself, when you bring it in, it comes with its own little community of soil organisms. So a good healthy compost will have a lot of fungi in it. It'll have a lot of healthy bacteria in it. And it'll have mites, and springtails, and nematodes, and all sorts of things that you can't see without a microscope. So that's really important. It's really helpful to improve your soil. Now, most of us, when we think about adding mulch or adding compost, like you buy that stuff by the yard, and it's not cheap, right? And so if you've got a big project, if you've got a really big garden bed, or you've got a really big area that you want to landscape or improve, you know, you may not be able to go out in 1 year and buy enough of it to really cover the whole thing. So what I do, I kind of do a triage. I try to say, okay, I'm going to establish some core areas, and I'm going to work really hard the first year or two to improve those as much as I can and get those as healthy as I can. And then over time, I can expand those out little by little until they all kind of grow together. And that's a good way to kind of make the most of your budget and make sure that you're really achieving something, at least in some small areas at first. If you're trying to improve a larger area, the one thing that's really cheap is seed. So you can, the areas that are not part of your core areas, you can find seed that will grow in, things that will grow in disturbed soils, and you can use those to get some biology going in those interstitial areas in between while you're waiting. I like to gather seed off the side of the road. I do a lot of that, and it's actually free.
Are we allowed to just, what's the rules on taking on like these Texas roads?
So
aren't there limitations on what we can take off the road?
From what I understand, you're not allowed to take plants off the side of the road and sell them.
But I can take my shovel and dig up all these salvias and lantana that I see on the side of the road?
I would say whenever there's a construction project that's going to come in and destroy them, we would encourage people to do that, and I've done that. I wouldn't encourage people to go out and dig up all these plants off the side of the road that may be the last one in Guadalupe County that's still there, hanging on, and somebody dug it up and home had it for themselves. So I wouldn't encourage that. But I would say, seed for sure. Collect seed and propagate it and give it to people and pass it on. I think that's a really valuable thing. The other thing I would say when you're trying to take action is you got to have patience. So my kids know that when we're getting ready to go somewhere, go out, Mom sometimes takes longer than they think that she should. But what we've learned is that she knows what she's doing. She's going to work at her own pace, and she's going to be ready when she's ready. And that's how Mother Nature is. She doesn't always work at the pace that we want. So we can't get frustrated and get discouraged because we don't see a huge improvement in 1 year. You might start a soil improvement project, and you get a year like these last 2 years, like I did. And it's discouraging because there's no rain and things are going slow. But if you keep at it and you wait, all those fungi are going to grow, and eventually it's going to kick in, and you're going to be amazed at how fast it goes once it kicks in. Now, if you don't have patience, which I don't really, there are some things that you can add. There's some soil additives you can add that will speed the process along and make it go a little faster. The one thing I would caution is that the one thing that you never want to add when you're trying to improve your soil are inorganic fertilizers. And for a couple of reasons. We talked about how those can cause the organic material in your soil to off-gas as carbon dioxide and lose that organic matter forever. But they also affect how your plants grow. So when you take a plant that's a baby and you just feed it liquid nitrogen, liquid phosphorus, liquid potassium all the time, it gets lazy. And it says, I don't have to do anything to meet all my needs. And so even if it's growing in a healthy soil that's got a lot of fungi that it could interact with, it's going to say, you know what, I don't need you guys. And it doesn't make those friendships and those interactions with the fungi. And what happens is, you get to summertime, and that plant that didn't need any help all along because it had all the nitrogen it needed, it suddenly needs water, doesn't it? And it's only got its roots at that point to try to go and get water. And if you hadn't poured all that fertilizer all along, it would have had a chance to look like that seedling we saw earlier that had all those mycorrhizal fungi going all through the soil around it. So that's what I would caution is inorganic fertilizers will set you back. But if you want to improve and you want to add things, what I say is feed the soil, not the plant. So you can take things like, I like to use liquid fish, hydrolyzed fish, or liquid kelp or seaweed. Those are really good fungal foods. They have a lot of, they have nitrogen in them, but it's in a form that's not readily available to the plant on its own. And so the plant needs the fungi to go in and break them down before it can use them. Bacterial foods are things like sugars. So molasses is a really good bacterial food. But really, bacteria do pretty well on their own. And so you don't really have to, when I'm adding fungal food or soil foods, I'll really put a lot more of those fungal food elements in and just a little bit of bacterial stuff, like the molasses. You can also add beneficial microbes. So you get on the internet, people will sell you bugs in a bottle. Some of them have been scientifically tested and proven to be the greatest source of mycorrhizal fungi. And there's all kinds of claims about how well they work. And some of them are probably really effective, and some of them are probably snake oil.
You talking nematodes here?
So I'm talking more like mycorrhizal fungi and bacteria that you can buy in solution. Not so much. I mean, there may be some nematodes like eggs or something.
The garden shows always talk about beneficial nematodes.
Yeah,
But I don't really ever do that, so I don't know what's good.
So what I would say is you can go on and buy that stuff and put it out, but you can also make your own. You can take, if you've got a really good healthy compost bed, I've done this, you take a 5-gallon bucket and a fish tank bubbler and a piece of cheesecloth, and you wrap up some of that good healthy compost and you dunk it in the water with the little fish tank bubbler going so that it stays aerated. You add some of those soil foods like the liquid fish and liquid kelp, to give it food, and then over the course of a day or two, you don't really want to go much longer than that. All those bacteria and fungi in that compost will reproduce, and you'll get more of them. You can take and pour that out. Now, I've done this, and I don't know how much it's really sped things along, or how much it's just made me feel better that I'm doing something. It does make me feel better, but that is something that some people use, and it could be a way to kind of speed along this improvement process. There's some work on Korean natural farming, where they actually go out into like healthy woodland areas, and they use rice to basically trap soil fungi that live out in the forest, and then they bring those in, cultivate those, and then put those in their compost, put those in their soil. Sounds kind of complicated to me, but if you're really ambitious, there's a lot of work that's been done on that, especially in gardening and orchard culture. So something to look into. And then one other thing is biochar. So biochar is basically it's charcoal, but it's got. If you look at just what charcoal is, it's these charred plant remains that have millions and billions and trillions of little pore spaces all through them so they can hold water. They have all of these little charged sites all over them that hold on to cations. If you just pour charcoal out of your soil, it'll actually absorb cations and minerals out of your soil, and at least temporarily it'll make your soil kind of depleted a little bit. But if you take charcoal and you put it into, say, a healthy compost bin, it's going to absorb all of those minerals and nutrients, and it's going to absorb the bacteria and fungi will move in and colonize it. And then you can take that and put it out in your garden, put it out on your landscape, and it's just really beneficial. So don't go saying that. And you told me to put charcoal all over everything.
question on that. Are you talking about charred wood or like charcoal briquettes or like activated charcoal?
I mean, I wouldn't go buy like charcoal briquettes that have, chemicals and stuff on them. There's a lot of different types of charcoal that's used for biochar. You can use, what I've heard is, young wood, like the first year growing tips of wood, is good for a lot of things, but you can make charcoal out of, bigger chunks of wood. You can make charcoal out of rice husks. They make it out of a lot of different like waste products. You can make charcoal out of manure, and it's going to have different constituents in it based on what it's made out of. And sometimes if you make, depending on how it's made and what it's made of, it can have like high levels of metals in it, which may not be good. So you want to make sure if you're buying biochar that you look on there and see what's in it, what's it made from. Make sure that it's not something that's going to be, some sort of toxic waste product that we're trying to get rid of.
So if we're growing trees in our yard that might be a good thing to use.
Yeah, and there's a difference between the charcoal and the ash. Once you burn it all the way down, you burn up all of that carbon, then the carbon is gone, and you're just left with like the potassium and the other minerals that were in there. And so that's not the same thing as charcoal. Charcoal is it's cooked in a low oxygen environment, and so only about half of the carbon comes off of it, and the rest of it stays behind in that form. And so it looks like what the plant, it's like the structure of the plant minus some of the carbon that's in there.
Oh, I was just going to say, on the biochar, I think that's the topic I'm right about, but basically I moved in a lot, so I kind of cleared it, and I just do a bunch of bonfires, and then take a water hose and let it burn for 2 or 3 hours, and then water it down, and and then the next morning water it one more time.
Yeah.
And then there's like 75 pounds of charcoal.
Yeah.
And then mix that with you're saying mix that with like green matter or like dirt or grass.
I would put it into like an active compost pile that you have going, and leave it in there for a few months.
And then
you can spread it out. Yeah. It helps too to grind. You don't want to put big huge chunks. It's not going to be very efficient for it to be colonized. So you want it to be broken down, busted up, grinded up, to a smaller part.
Super easy, but the main thing is to spray it down, otherwise, like you said, just with ash.
Yep. And ash is a good source of, potassium,
Yeah.
but it doesn't contribute to increasing your soil carbon like the charcoal does.
Also makes live and get your money.
What's that?
It also makes live and get your money.
Yep.
And is that the same principle as in Oklahoma where they'll burn fields at part of the year for grazing cattle and horses and burn off stubble as controlled burns every year?
It does when you do control burning. When you go out here on the prairie back when this was a prairie, and there were frequent wildfires.
Right.
A lot of that surface material would burn and just off gas and be gone.
Right.
But the crown of the plants would, it was very green, and that there was a lot of soil moisture right there at the surface, so we wouldn't burn very efficiently. It would put out, so you end up with all of this charcoal there near the surface.
Right.
And so it was a natural source of charcoal
Right.
on the
And then the
prairies.
plants just come back every year.
Yeah.
Boom.
And that's part of how we had those really deep, rich soils here on these grasslands. It's kind of counterintuitive that fire leaves behind carbon. So the other thing you want to do is you want to choose drought resistant plants. So we talked about the plants that have been here are probably the ones that can continue to be here. I don't expect you guys to be able to read this. Good thing. This is one thing about me. I like to make lists of plants for different applications. And so this was kind of a list I put together of if I was starting, a little prairie restoration project, and I had only picked, 40 or 50 plants. What would I pick? So I would make sure that I have a diversity of grasses and sedges. I put sedges kind of in that same functional group. And I would want to make sure that I've got, cool season grasses, warm season grasses. I want to make sure I've got some legumes in there that are really important, especially when you're starting out at pulling nitrogen into the soil. And asters and sunflowers we have more asters and sunflowers here than any other plant family. And so they're a really important part of our ecosystems. And so I think about them as their own sort of functional group. And then I kind of have everything else, which is all the other herbaceous species, different plant families to have diversity in there. When you're picking plants, ornamental plants are selected to look pretty and to flower all year long, but there's trade-offs whenever a plant is putting all of the energy into flowers or into flowering during times of year when it's not really good for it to. And so those ornamental plants, they've selected to sort of be drought intolerant. So they need a lot of extra babying to keep them going, keep them healthy. If you're using native plants, even if you're using like ornamental varieties of a native plant, they're probably not going to be quite as tough as if you were to go collect seed off the side of the road from your local area. And so having that local seed, it's, plants that have been here for generations and generations, they're adapted to everything that Central Texas can throw out. Diversity is the key, and I would say that whether you're trying to plant a landscape bed or a prairie restoration project or a garden, you can have a diversity of different types of plants growing and interacting with each other. They're going to do better than if you have a monoculture of all corn or all soybeans or all wheat. You're not getting that benefit that comes from having different types of plants growing in association with each other. And then you want to plant for the soil you have. So if you're starting out in an area you've got really poor clay soil, you're not going to be able to go in and plant, a bunch of big blue stem seed and have it all come up the first year. It's not going to work. So you might want to start with some of those kind of native weedier species that come up and do a little tougher to get you through those first years, start to build organic material in the soil, and then the other things can come in after. So here's some easy plants to grow from seed in poor soils. And I gave you guys a handout that's got this list and some more. A lot of these are things that I've grown in my own little 8 by 60 foot prairie garden on the side of my house. It's done really well, just throwing seed out, and it's come up and bloomed and done really well in the first year or two, even in these past 2 really dry years. I've got some cool season grasses on here, like Canada wild rye. If anybody wants Canada wild rye, I've got an extra. I've got a lot of warm season grasses. Side oats are grown by Harry Grama, Texas cutgrass. Tall drop seed is a really good early successional grass that will come up from seed and just go crazy. And then I've got the Aristidas, the Threons, are kind of an intermediate. They come up a little bit later than the cool season grasses, but they earlier than the warm season grasses. So thinking about keeping active living roots with green leaves all year long, you want to kind of stagger and make sure you've got plants growing all year long. On the herbaceous side, I've got some kind of early successional legumes here, like blue bonnets, deer pea vetch. Are y'all familiar with partridge pea? So it's one that you can, the seed is readily available. It'll grow in kind of almost any kind of soil, it doesn't really care. It's an annual legume, and it makes these nice little yellow flowers that are kind of attractive, and it's a good host plant for some of the sulfur butterflies. So that's throw that out with your blue bonnets and your other stuff, and that's a good one to mix in. We've got some of the asters and sunflowers. There's so many asters and sunflowers that are good early successional weedy type plants. Everybody knows Indian blanket, cowpin daisy. Even Maximilian sunflowers, which are a big tall prairie plant. What I've learned is if you throw some seed out from those, they come up pretty readily from seed and they grow pretty fast. And they get really big, and then your neighbors start looking at you suspiciously. And so I might have some of those too, if anybody wants extras. And then other things, other good ones on here. Horseplate is a really good weedy kind of plant. You can put it in really poor degraded soils, and it'll pop up the first year, and the bees love it. And so, take a look at these. Take a look at some of the ones on the list I gave you, and This is kind of what you want to create a palette of things you're going to put out that will come in and take over those first few years until you can really improve the soil and get it better. And then you have a lot more options about what you can plant, what you can grow there once the soil's a little healthier. Another area that people really struggle with is like dry shade. So if you've got kind of shady areas, the soil's kind of more cracked and dry, not a lot of organic matter. It's tough to find plants that will do well there because a lot of the really tough weed plants that we showed, they do really great, but they got to have full sun to be able to grow their best. But a lot of the more shade-tolerant plants need more water. And so here's some plants. Some of these sedges, I've got all three of these carrot species: the eastern woodland sedge, Cherokee sedge, and Weberville sedge, growing in some of my kind of dry shade areas around my house. And they've all done really well through these last couple of years of drought. Even though some of these can take, being saturated, like Cherokee sedge, you can be inundated with water for a while and be fine. But it's also fairly drought tolerant once it's established. Some of these other grasses, inland sea oats, everybody's heard of inland sea oats probably. It's pretty readily available in the nursery trade. But some other good perennial cool season grasses are Texas fescue and three-flower mallet grass. These are cool season grasses that grow around here in shade or park shade. They do really well. They're very attractive. They're nice and green in the winter when a lot of stuff is dead. But they're almost non-existent in the nursery trade. So these are some of those things that if people will start collecting them and using them and passing them around, I think they'll become more popular. People will see the benefit. Another one that's a warm season grass that does really well in the same kind of dry shade is rusty seed pastel. Not many people have heard of it. It's a warm season grass. The seed head is not really anything to show off, but it has these kind of wide strap-like bright green leaves, and it'll naturally form about a little bunch, maybe a foot and a half tall, or you can mow it. And it'll stay real kind of nice and short. So it's one that it really does good. It comes in, you've got cool season grasses right about the time those are growing dormant. The rusty seed pastel will take off and kind of take over those areas. So some plants to look for. Herbaceous plants do well here, Turk's cat, marble seed. You need to know about marble seed? I got lots of marble seed. I'm actually going to be digging some of these. Some plants I kind of got extras of them. We digging and give them to the new Ronald's chapter in the stock plant sale later this spring, I think in April. So come by and see what they have. They might have some of these that came right out of my yard. Marble seed is kind of it's a little bit of a weed plant that spreads itself around, but it's got these beautiful little pendant white flowers in the spring that the bumblebees just absolutely love. And so I don't mind it at all. And then the wild petunias are another really kind of low maintenance, super easy plant that also kind of spreads themselves around a little bit. But Drummer's wild petunia is one that it gets about 2 to 3 feet tall, grows well in shade, and it starts blooming about late May, and it'll bloom all the way into whenever we have a hard freeze. And it puts, each plant will have a few blooms each day. And so when I get kind of depressed in July and August and everything's just so hot and dry and terrible, I go out and I look at my Drummond's wild petunias and they're blooming and they're still doing good, so it's not better. So in conclusion, I just say that, if you have healthy soils, that's really what's going to give you drought resilience. And so as you're trying to transition and go on this journey of improving the health of your soil, let nature do most of the work. You can add some things in, but really all you're trying to do is you're trying to create the conditions for Mother Nature to come in and do all the work. Part of it is using native plants from your area, and then you want to make sure that you're always thinking about biodiversity. You think about diversity of the plants, diversity of the roots, diversity of the fungi in the soil, and all those soil organisms. At the end of this, I'll leave this up to you guys. These are some some books that I've kind of started reading the last few years as I got interested in soil health. Some of these are really great. I brought a couple of them with me. I'll pass these out if you guys want to take a look at them. Pass them around. One of these is a soil owner's manual. It's kind of a slim little thing, but it's a really good kind of everything you ever need to know about soil that nobody ever told you. It's mostly in very plain language, so it's pretty easy to understand, but it does get into some more of the technical aspects of some of the stuff we talked about, which I think is helpful. It was done by a guy, I think he was an NRCS employee that retired, and he's just kind of trying to spread the gospel of soil health. The other one that I have here is called Mycorrhizal Planet, and it's all about mycorrhizal fungi and how they benefit soils. And it was written by a guy who's an orchardist. He wasn't a soil scientist or an academic studying soil fungi. He's just practiced with his orchards. He's practiced all this, especially some of these like amendments and soil filters and composting and biochar. And he's got a lot of really good, kind of more step-by-step practical advice. The book also goes into a lot of detail about all these different types of mycorrhizal fungi and the diversity of them and all that. So it's a really good, it goes way into the weeds, but it also has a lot of good basic information too. So those are some good resources. And with that, I'll take whatever questions you have on broad. Rotational grazing can be a really good way to jumpstart soil organic matter. So whenever plants are, especially grasses, whenever they're pitching off and eating, what they do is they get stressed and they put a bunch of energy into roots. So that they'll put a flush of energy into roots down in the soil. And so those roots are down there, and when you leave them alone for a little while, they'll kind of look around and be like, is it safe to come back up? And then they'll sprout back up, and then they'll start putting more energy back into the matter. And what happens is once they start putting more energy back into the matter, they'll kind of twist the fans up with roots, and those will die and slough off into the carbon. And they can come in and buy off of so you can create these cycles where you're actually getting carbon in the soil faster and faster. As well as, the manure from the animals and the trampling of all that into the soil also helps improve the factor. Dung beetles are also really helpful. So if you've got grazing animals and you've got dung beetles, they're actually taking a lot of times in there and some of that organic material several inches down into the soil.
Does the state have a program for raising participating?
Does the city have a program for what?
Does the state have a program to help?
Oh, does the state have a program to help? I would say, talk to your extension agents. There are some programs, like the NRCS does some things to, especially with farmers and ranchers. I don't know if there's really a program that's sort of broadly applicable to homeowners or gardeners on helping find resources to improve soil health, but it's like, if you have a state agency devoted to building new roads, you should have an agency devoted to building the soil, right? Yes?
So, it's good to keep your gardens mulched all the time, but I'm thinking back too, I read in my books that it's good not to have mulch on your gardens in the early spring, so your soils will warm up. Where did you go with this?
So I would say, in terms of that, so if you live further north, if you live in the northeast and you've got soils that are like freezing and you're not going to have plants active in the soil or germinating in the soil until it gets up to April or May, that could be an issue. You want the soil sort of exposed so it gets more sun and heats up faster. I don't think that's as much of a problem here just because we're in February and it's like 75 degrees. And I'll say there's like not all mulch is created equal. If you put a lot of like wood mulch that hasn't really been decomposed and broken down or composted into your soils, it can actually draw nitrogen out of the soil because what's happening is the bacteria that live in the soil are trying to get that, but they need they need nitrogen in order to break down all those complex lignins and cellulose. And so they'll temporarily pull nitrogen from the soil to break it down. And so if you put a bunch of just really woody stuff directly into your soil, you can have kind of a temporary effect where it makes it harder for things to get nitrogen. But what I've done with my garden beds is there's a technique called hugel culture. It was invented, I guess, by like the people in Northern Europe, where they bury a lot of wood and sticks and things under their beds and then plant over those, and over time, it breaks down and decomposes, and it's a source of minerals and nutrients for that garden behind it. It also holds a lot of water. All right, thank you guys for back to this.